More than $126,000 of taxpayers' money has been spent on one person's motel stay while they waited for public housing to become available. The stay covered more than 600 nights, despite the fact emergency housing grants are only supposed to cover 7-night stays. But as pressure for public housing grows, more and more people are spending weeks and regularly months in motels. Nita Blake-Persen reports.
The government now spends more than $3 billion per year on housing assistance, with more and more of that money being spent on motels. Emergency housing grants, which cover short-term accommodation, were introduced in July 2016 as a stopgap measure, but are increasingly being used for longer stays as the housing crisis bites. There are 1,899 households in private motels, with 381 of those in motels for more than 3 months at a cost of $1,500 each a week. Figures show it's big business for some motels, with 5 providers alone receiving $20 million in the last 3 years to provide shelter for the homeless. The top earner is an Auckland motelier that's been paid $6.1 million. The Salvation Army's Lynette Hudson says while motel accommodation is a good short-term stopgap, it has become much more than that.
The government have stepped up and are responding, but it's just shifted the problem from people having been homeless and living in cars and, couch surfing, a whole range of just homeless options, to being in motel units, which is really no solution at all for a permanent solution, because people still don't have a home. It's at least a roof over their heads and keeping people off the street, but we're still faced with this terrible shortage of housing.
Motel stays are typically granted for 7 nights at a time, but in one case a person was put up for 615 nights. The cost? $126,000. Kathleen Paraha works with the Auckland Action Against Poverty and says many people are in the same boat, struggling to find permanent, affordable accommodation. The public housing waitlist is growing fast, reaching a record 11,655 in July. Kathleen Paraha says she's been helping one elderly man who's been on the housing waitlist for months.
He doesn't get enough to to go into a private home. He doesn't get enough to rent. He's been waiting since March last year. He's been A19 since March last year. The highest you can go is A20. He's going from motel to motel.
A Treasury briefing to the incoming Housing Minister, Megan Wood, says increasing accommodation costs disadvantage the young and those with lower incomes who are less likely to own a home. 18-year-old Aucklander Kayla Edwards is among those struggling with housing. She's pregnant and has a 1-year-old son. The family has been forced to go and get government help to stay in several motels over the past few months because they had nowhere else to go.
I hated it. It was just so stressful. It got to the point where I kept ending up in hospital multiple times. It was like 3-4 times a month I was going in and out of hospital, and I got told it was because I was stressing out and stuff. And my anxiety attacks and everything has just gotten really bad to me, and now I got referred to the maternal mental health, and now sometimes I get told that I have to be put on pills.
In a statement, the Minister responsible for public housing, Chris Farfoy, says the government has allocated just under $500 million in this year's budget to address homelessness and is considering more options for suitable accommodation for those in the most need, as it recognises there is more to be done. Mō te hōtaka o te ahi pōnei, ko Nita Blake-Persen, aho.